Well, a CNN crew reporting on the protest in Minneapolis was arrested by police live on camera. Have a look at this.
Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
That is reporter Omar Jimenez, who was showing demonstrators being arrested live on TV. He, along with the production team, were then escorted away by officers after having offered to set up in a different location. He has since been released and spoke to the network about his experience.
It did cross my mind that what is really happening here? And the one thing that gave me a little bit of comfort was that it happened on live TV. There's been this, when you talk within the community about, let's just say, what's happened with George Floyd, there's always a discussion that what's happening isn't new, it's being filmed. And that speaks to the power of having something happen on camera, because you can have people speak up for you without you saying anything. And that gave me a little bit of comfort knowing that you guys saw what was happening, I was living what was happening, and the country was seeing what was happening unfold in real time right before their eyes. You don't have to doubt my story. It's not filtered in any sort of way. You saw it for your own eyes.
Courtney Radich, who's the advocacy director for the Committee to Protect Journalists, and joined us live from Washington, D.C. via Skype. Courtney, in the context of the climate engendered by the nation's leader, by Donald Trump, who continually lambasts the fake news media, what do you make of the arrests of this news team in these circumstances in Minneapolis?
We're deeply shocked that a CNN reporter and his crew were arrested live on air, despite clearly identifying themselves as members of the press, offering to comply with any police requests to move location. And this is not acceptable in a democracy. It's not acceptable behavior by law enforcement. And of course, we're concerned, as we recently reported in our latest report on the Trump administration and the media, about how this constant vilification and harassment of the press by President Trump and other political leaders vilifies them and creates a permissive environment where violence could become more likely. And frankly, sends a signal to law enforcement that, hey, CNN is, as Trump has called them, the enemy of the people.
So you can't see any circumstances in which these arrests could have been justified?
Based on what I saw in the video and what we saw, the calm demeanor of these reporters, the very clear compliance with any requests, no. And the fact that they were not able to verify that they were media just seems ludicrous in light of the fact that they were live streaming. It wouldn't take an hour to, they didn't need to handcuff them. It wouldn't take an hour to verify. They could have gone on CNN and looked at the live stream and see themselves on television. So that just does not ring true. And I think that the fact that you heard the governor apologize clearly indicates that no, this was not acceptable behavior. And this should send a signal more broadly to law enforcement that they must protect the rights of journalists to report freely and without fear of reprisal or harassment or arrest.
Right, and it's also kind of curious, or I should say blatant really, that you see a black reporter there being led away in handcuffs, arrested for doing his job, when a white member of the team was not arrested.
Look, we don't think any journalist should be arrested for doing their jobs, but we also know that in this environment that journalists of color, women journalists, journalists who somehow occupy a minoritized identity, face additional harassment and threats in doing their jobs. According to the U.S. Press Freedom Tracker, which we helped found, there have been at least 2 arrests of journalists this year, 9 arrests last year. We saw, for example, at Standing Rock that Native American journalists were arrested. So, unfortunately, I can't say, personally that this is super surprising. What was surprising is that any journalists were being arrested in America for doing their job, calmly complying with law enforcement. There was literally no excuse for that behavior on the part of the Minneapolis Police Department.
Yeah, it's almost unbelievable looking at these pictures, isn't it? Given the importance of this story, how concerned are you at the ability for journalists to report what's going on with these protests, and then knocking it forwards to November as we enter the run-in to the election?
We are deeply concerned about the safety of reporters reporting on the election, on protests, on civil unrest. And then you wrap into that the challenges of reporting during the coronavirus pandemic. So, in fact, our CPJ Emergencies, which provides life-saving guidance and support to journalists on the ground, has put out several safety advisories about how to cover civil unrest safely, how to cover coronavirus. We're working on a whole elections safety guide. So this is taking a lot of efforts, a lot of resources by us, by other organizations that are committed to ensuring that the American public is able to be informed during this important political period, which depends on journalists being able to do their jobs safely and securely.
Courtney, just great to get your perspective on this important story. Courtney Radich, Committee to Protect Journalists. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.